Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary. Welcome to the stream thing that I do.
The
And
stream thing.
I have a surprise for everyone. Swedish surprise. Hey,
Hi.
you're back.
Hello. I am back.
Alrighty.
Hello. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm back to hang out and talk about history and stuff and other cool things.
I just learned a very important thing, which is that on Twitch I have 69 followers. Now it's 70.
Sick.
We
Oh,
missed. Okay, so let me just
I missed the sex number.
the sex number. That means you just have to get to 420 faster. Okay, so for anyone who this is their first time out here, this is Step Back Today. I don't know if I'm going to keep using the branded names when this goes over, but every Monday afternoon at a Euro-friendly time, I hang out with. Sometimes I get to hang out with wonderful me, and sometimes it's just with you guys, and we talk and we do stuff and we have a good time, and everyone is great, and this is not awkward at all. One thing I do want to talk about a little bit with you guys, though, is that there's going to be some changes going on in the Step Back brand mythos. Uh-oh. Just doing a little change for something. So I, after having a wonderful conversation with a wonderful woman named Izzy, have decided to move the Step Back streaming operations to Twitch. I know, big change. Reason being, there's various reasons, but Twitch is a place where, in very much the streaming world, that's where the conversation's really happening. And I feel like it's just better to be out there in that world and do that thing. If I'm going to be doing this, it's better to do it there. What do you think? You're a Twitcher.
What do I think
Yeah.
about Twitch? Well, streaming on Twitch. Well, I don't know. I don't. Well, I'm not a Twitcher, am I?
You have a Twitch account, and you
I do have a
occasionally
Twitch
stream.
account. That's true. I think streaming on Twitch is. I think it's a good idea. Izzy would know better than I do about streaming on Twitch.
She's,
I really like to keep like all my things very separate. So I'm always pro to like keep to compartmentalize like all the things. But I know like a lot of people don't like that. But I like that. So I'm all pro for streaming on Twitch. I usually do video games here though, but I have a Twitch channel and I also have a live channel on YouTube. So like I compartmentalize even worse. So I shouldn't talk about like concerns about that.
Well, I got some complaints about all the streams popping up on the Step Back channel, and I realized that there's also no like elegant way to get old episodes. So I kind of just said to people, all right, like there's that part, but then on top of that, Twitch and the just chatting area of Twitch is the place where the stream political conversations happening. That's where like when all the stuff with Destiny went down, and I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like I thought he was just like a washed up StarCraft 2 player. I did not know anything about him existing.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, oh no, it's based on this whole politics, Twitch politics. And I was like, what?
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot going on here, talking about politics and talking about just general things. I haven't gotten super into it though, so like being a semi-frequent guest here with you is probably the closest I'll get to it.
That's all right. Also, but also there's like,
yeah.
Sorry, internet.
No, keep going.
The other thing too is that the with YouTube now, hearing two stories of YouTube just completely demonetizing channels that seemed rather innocuous. I'm just like, yeah, it's good to diversify maybe just a little bit.
Yeah.
So
It
that
is really good to just like, it's good to just have a foot outside of YouTube as well, just in case. Like even if it's not as developed, because my Twitch channel is not even close to as developed as my YouTube channel. But it's just good to have like another foot out there, just in case YouTube decides to just implode, which it might, because it could any day. Like, yeah, we have no idea what the leadership of YouTube is doing.
Yeah, they are notoriously opaque. I was about to say non-transparent, and I was like, oh gosh. So
Non-transparent.
so here's the thing. Here's how the transition's going to happen. There are, I'm guessing, some people watching on YouTube right now, because I am doing a Restream.io thing, a weird system made up of bundles of wires and confusing things that I even only have a tangential understanding of. But here's what's going to be happening. I'm going to be streaming on both platforms this week and this week only. And then the switch to Twitch as a full-time thing will occur starting next week, where there won't be YouTube streams at all. And the other thing I want to mention on that is that even in this transitionary week, if you want to ask questions that we're going to look at, we're only going to be monitoring the Twitch channel. So if you are somebody who wants to have your question answered in a stream, you're going to have to go over to Twitch and post it there. Since I know there are some, I want to make sure that my diehards get through this transition as painlessly as possible. So, I'm sorry to make it so complex, but this is a way to sort of acclimate you to the change. And
yeah, I mean, I feel like a small transitionary period is probably good, just to get people get in. Do you have the community tab on your channel available too, by the way?
Yeah, I'm gonna make a post on that after sometime this week. I have a video. I have to finish a video this week, which is going to absorb my days and nights and mornings and sleep.
You could also just do what Ollie did and just have like a small, like 1 minute video. It's like, the stream's over here now.
I could do that. Yeah. Maybe I'll do that before I release a video this week. This is one of the big ones, the sequel to the Ancient Aliens video.
Ooh.
About Dungeons and Dragons and the Satanic Panic.
Oh shit! I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, reprises not only Thought Slime but several basically my Dungeons and Dragons group I drafted into the studio to record this video. And it's got some pretty great improv stuff and everything. So it'll be really great. And there'll be tons of awesome outtakes for the patrons. So all that stuff. And also, I think a jet engine's flying over my house.
I can hear it.
You can?
I can't.
Okay. Because I know that there's like fighter jets in the city for something. Because it's a holiday weekend here in Canada. This is Canadian Labor Day weekend.
I've heard that that's a thing, Labor Day. I still don't fully know what it is.
I know that the reason the orthodox leftist our answer is that this is what the American continent moved May 1st to, in order to disrupt worker unity between Europeans and Americans.
Yeah, that's what I suspected. There's a question in chat asking if everyone can type in the Twitch chat, or if you have to like be a subscriber or a follower or something.
I am always going to keep the chat open to anybody who is who's in there. If things start getting real rowdy in the not too distant future, there are features where you can restrict chat to people who are followers, which you do not have to pay to do. You just have to register an account and follow the channel for maybe about 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending upon it, so that random people can't just come in and brigade. But for now, everything is just going to be sort of like this. Normal stuff.
Normal and open.
And Night Watcher, if you can, Night Watcher 13 is in the chat. Night Watcher, if you can, I know that you're one of my chat mods. I would love to promote you on here too, if I can. So please remind me, because I will forget by the time the stream is over. Anyways, about a week ago, you just released a pretty good video.
Oh shit! Which one? I don't remember this. What? Do I make videos? Am I a YouTuber? What?
Yeah. You just released a video about pain. The what's it called?
Oh yeah, transsexuals and suffering.
Yeah.
My favorite name that I've ever had, I think.
Why don't we? Why don't we
I was gonna call it inescapable transsexual suffering, but it was a bit too wordy.
it's all good. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Like, what is it about? Pitch it to people.
Well,
No.
in like currently, it's about like two things kind of at the same time. Because currently in like trans discourse, there's kind of a discussion about who is really trans. Like, if there is if there's a perceived divide between like true transsexuals and like transgenders, which sometimes includes like non-binary trans people and trans people who don't conform to what trans used to mean and things like that. And there's been a lot of people who talk about it like from a good philosophical perspective, but no one has talked about it from a historical perspective, which is what the other thing is about, kind of. So I kind of talk very briefly about like the origins of modern sexual pathology in regards to what we would today call LGBT people, because I think that's like a big origin of the term, origin of current discourse in the LGBT community.
Now you were super
And
like
so I
you were
talk
really
about that.
you were really detailed, and I'm guessing like this is some of your research work, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, Krafft Ebing is my bae. I love him. He will be my boyfriend, even though he has been dead for over 100 years.
You are gonna get his picture printed on a body pillow.
Definitely. I already have him on a mug. I'm definitely gonna get a body pillow. I'm gonna one day commission an oil painting of his face and have it in my apartment. I'm gonna have a marble statue of him, like the statue of David, but with his face. I love him. He's an awful, awful boy, but I love his. I basically sunk like 3 years of my life into his magnum opus, and just like in his personal letters and the workings of his colleagues, and everything about his life. Like he was my research subject, and I love him.
It's good to have a slightly normal thing that you can like study as history to like put your thing on, because like I tried to have like, because when you're a grad student you want to like decorate your desk with all the things that make your subject interesting.
Yeah.
And I wound up with some awkward things, like I had some little statues of the World Trade Center and the Freedom Tower, and like I had this 2-photo framed thing of the New York skyline before and after 9/11, and it's like, it's like, yeah, mine was a little bit more awkward in that sense.
Yeah, you kind of become obsessed with your topic. But, I don't mind, because no one knows about Krafft Ebing. So I think it's fun. So whenever like people ask me like, oh, well, what did you do in university, and I can just like, okay, sit down for 3 hours and let me tell you.
Let's talk
the
about
legend.
Let's talk about gender.
Let's talk about Austrian. Yeah, let's talk about Bohemian-born Austrian sexual pathologists.
Yeah, when I was a person like who did grad student, at least like he looks like a a 19th century regular lad, and isn't like a horrible disaster that.
Who we're talking about? Sorry.
Irving, or I'm trying to remember. Yeah. Abing?
Well, yeah, Krafft Ebing. That's his last name.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to pronounce his full ass name, which is because he was like a minor noble thing in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Oh Jesus Christ! His full name is Richard Fridolin Josef Freiherr Krafft von Festenberg auf Froberg Renant von Ebing.
That's better German pronunciation than I could do.
I think I just try to let my European heritage, my very white genes take over, so I can speak German.
You must know to do that research. You must also have a pretty good grasp of the German language.
Yeah, I can read German. I can read Old German. I can't really read modern German as well, actually, because I've only read like German from between 1845 to 1945.
That's the other thing.
That's all I studied.
Oh yeah. Well, that's like a thing that happens in a lot of history departments too, is that there's lots of people who are able to read archaic versions of languages, and that's like it. So like I remembered I knew one guy who Well, he was a ancient Greece person and was fluent in ancient Greek, and went to Greece on like a trip and tried to use it to get around and confuse the hell out of everyone, speaking like a something several thousand-year-old version of Greek.
It's wonderful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, but I can't really speak German like at all, which sucks because whenever I talk to like German historians and I talk about, yeah, I studied German like medicinal history, and then they start speaking German, and I'm like, no,
Uh, so I think I just heard that I got a super chat over on YouTube. I don't know what with a question, which like I guess I should answer.
yeah.
From our good buddy Ariel Fernandez. So as soon as Kelly gets the question to me, I'll be able to answer. Okay, here we go. Ooh, all right. This is
Questions.
okay. If there was to be a military coup d'état in the United States right now, would it be a right-wing military coup or a left-wing military coup?
Right-wing military coup? Are you kidding me?
Oh my
There are
gosh.
no leftists in the American military.
No, they're by and large.
I'm 90, I'm 90% sure that they'll filter out any actual leftists in the military.
I can imagine. Also, if you haven't noticed, like a lot of Americans, the American left is very anti-guns.
Yeah, very anti-military as well, and I think it's been that like that for a couple of decades, from what I know of American history. So I don't really see that. Whereas the right wing has, both historically, like in most of the Western world, and currently, have a very like military fetishization, kind of military idolization. So there are a lot more like military families in families that are on the far right. But obviously that doesn't really address like individuals, so I'm not really sure. But I still think the military itself would still kind of maintain that hierarchy of uh, of more like right wing politics, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me. I don't really know enough about like the modern day U.S. military.
So
Again, like everything past 1945 is just like a blur.
mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing you did say that is very true about the United States, and something that I don't know if my cat's like having a freak out right now.
He's very excited.
Yeah, he's acting weird. But there's one thing about the American military is that there's something called Vietnam Syndrome, which was after Vietnam was over, the military got together and was like, okay, they concluded that they lost the war because of a PR issue. That it was the mass drafting of soldiers and those kinds of things that caused the military to lose the people's support and back out. And so they did a lot of work to try and make it so harder for journalists to report on active military engagements. But also, one of the things is that they reduced the amount of mass drafts, which in America has resulted in, as you said, the vast amount of military recruits being limited to military families, and that there's like a culture of a small percentage of American families that put out most of the soldiers. And yeah, they tend to vote pretty Republican. I would also mention that South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg wanted to. I think he had the best of intentions, but this came out super weird, which was he wanted to put a tax on families that don't have a member in the military.
Yeah,
and it's like,
which is like, baby, you can't say that. That's really bad. This is why like everyone needs an historian on staff, just so they can be like, no, baby, you can't. No.
Just said
this is really bad.
Just like one historian who works in Washington, and they just have the power to take the president aside in any situation and just have a conversation.
Just like we need to talk about this specific thing that happened 250 years ago, which will explain why you are wrong right now.
You could just double them as like the head of the American History Museum at the Smithsonian to keep them busy.
Yeah, honestly. But like America doesn't have a draft or like a conscription thing, does it? It's all voluntary military, I think. Is it? I don't know.
So American men, when they turn 18, have to register for the draft,
Ah,
but they have never used it since since Vietnam,
okay.
and they have, instead of going to the draft when they're short on manpower, they've more they've gone directly to sort of the things that people do after that when they're more desperate, which is making it more and more beneficial to be in the military and making it
Mm.
lowering standards. So
Yeah, recruitment
oftentimes,
drives basically.
yeah, so things that you as a Swede would be like, oh yeah, these are just things you should be expected to get. You can only really get if you're a soldier. Like in America, if you do 2 years of service, you can go to university for free. If you do 10 years of service, you basically get like a basic income type thing. You get a retirement benefit. And
Jesus.
you get access to admittedly terrible but still existent public healthcare service through the VA or
Mm.
Veterans Affairs. And so, like,
Yeah.
a lot of the things that, every other country just gives to their, or decent countries give to their citizens, they give to soldiers.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that because a lot of European countries still have like kind of a conscription system, sort of. Because Sweden abolished it and just went full voluntary service for like 5 years or something, and then took it back because it was unpopular, and also no one wanted to join the military. I wonder why. Um, so in Sweden, we still have that kind of, but I think America kind of gets away with doing it the way they do because it has like a much more militarist culture, and also because the population is huge.
Mm-hmm. And they've also gone to lengths of recruitment that are like they target poor communities.
Mm.
They literally funded a shooter video game to try and make being a soldier cool and awesome.
America's Army, I
Yep.
believe it is. They developed it themselves, even. I think they didn't
Mm-hmm.
just fund it. The military actually made it, which is wild.
Mm-hmm. It's
Now they don't do that. Now they just like sponsor Call of Duty and Medal of Honor games.
mm-hmm. And now their latest thing is that after their decline as a straight up empire, like their decline as like because they still can't even get the numbers that they needed to do the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan they wanted to do.
Mm.
So now their thought is this is like an Obama turn, which is invest a lot more in DARPA projects for things like unmanned aerial vehicles and things like that. So that's more of a thing.
A
Uh,
lot of drone tech.
mm-hmm. The way that the thing about drone tech that it lets the oh man, I'm going full militarist history here, but the way that drone tech lets the American geopolitical thing work out is that they can vastly expand the scope of the wars that they're involved with and do them basically because like violating international airspace is less of a crime than is like sending troops to somewhere.
Yeah.
And so right now the United States is committing war on terror operations in 8 countries. Most of them are countries you would not expect. They're countries like Yemen, like Somalia, and they are just using these like surgical missile strikes on anybody having weddings and things like that. And
Yeah. If anyone is an adult man in the right age group and has a Casio watch on their arm, it's like, yeah, that's a target.
mm-hmm. So that's kind of this situation. They have a list of people that they want to take out, and they have a list, and they're trying to go and hunt them down.
That's so messed up, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's basically just robotic death squads. Because if we would, if that was just like a gang of people that were like hired by that was like loyal to like Imperial Germany or something, and they would like travel around different countries just killing political opponents, people would remember that today to be like, hey, that's real fucked up, yo.
Mm-hmm.
That's super messed up. And yet we are.
Yeah, that's the kind of modern state of the war on terror as it transitions into a permanent conflict. But these are all done because one of the major things that the U.S. military worries about a lot is popularity and
You know,
killing American citizens. First of all, keeping the American citizens that die overseas in the military confined to a few families that are already very loyal is one thing. And then a second thing is, instead of mass recruitment and these declaring these operations, they just need to use this kind of covert warfare. So now America will probably never actually ever say we're going to war with these people, and they'll just be doing these operations forever. It's very much like the 80s where the
America hasn't actually gone to war, I think, since the Second World War.
Yes.
Technically, because Korea wasn't technically a war, was it? It was like a police action or something. Technically.
Yes.
Vietnam was like a peacekeeping operation or something. Like, America hasn't gone to war for a while now, and they're just like fine-tuning that system more and more using new tech,
which is scary because
it's weird wild.
Publicly, the U.S. military gets $1 trillion a year, and there's a lot of evidence that it has a quote-unquote shadow budget that's a lot bigger.
Oh yeah, like discretionary funds in the budget that's supposed to go to like top secret things. All of that goes to like military, right? Because it's not like they have a top secret art restoration program somewhere.
Yeah,
that's like hidden in the discretionary funds budget. Like, what?
And if this is stuff out now, you can just imagine what DARPA's working on at the moment.
That fucks with me too. When we're in the popular part of history now, though. People like this.
Yeah, you can imagine, like, people are giving money to DARPA, and like DARPA also funds a lot of stuff. They have a close relationship with MIT, and like the things that we have seen coming out of that is like the Boston Dynamics dog.
And people share that because it's fun. And it's like, this this is not fun.
Yeah,
this is not cute.
You know who's funding that, right?
And that's what they're showing us. That's what they're comfortable letting everyone know that they have.
Yeah, Terminator was the only actual. Terminator was right. Terminator was the one.
We're gonna end up with Terminator eventually. We probably already have them, don't we?
Well, like, the thing is that AI is going through development, and so soon they're going to be like putting more and more trust of the strategic element of these things over to an AI, and then at some point, yeah.
Did you hear about the Amazon the Amazon War Cloud?
No, I want to hear this.
Oh, have you? Okay, so the military basically want to outsource a cloud-based computer operation, so that the military can use AI for war planning. So they have a cloud to have everything on, and they're basically outsourcing this to either like Google or Amazon or something. And so we're reaching a point now where we might have the Amazon War Cloud.
Oh no.
Which is just like a big AI thing that controls, or like has partial control of basically all of United States military operations. Which is like, if you wrote this in a book, people would say it's too overt.
Mm-hmm.
This is too obvious.
Yeah.
Like, this is gonna go bad. And yet here we are. You're
Yeah.
talking about a lot of military. What's up otherwise outside of the military?
What's up? Okay. What is
Sweden doesn't really. Sweden has a military, and we're currently doing like a big military defense budget push, but like we don't really have a military.
I mean, you're right next to Russia, so that's a little understandable because Russia's getting a little bit more
that's
frisky
basically why
these days.
Sweden wants to basically like boost up the defense budget, but like even Sweden, even if all of Sweden was soldiers, still wouldn't be enough against Russia. Like, I think it's folly. That's just me.
That's true. What is interesting is that that's happening on every country on the border, but I imagine it also has to do with the fact that Sweden's not a member of NATO and doesn't want to be.
Yeah, well, we're technically not a member of NATO. Technically. But I mean, we have such a close relationship with NATO that we basically are a part of NATO. It's just that we have this idea of neutrality that we'd never want to enter a defense alliance ever. But we basically are.
What?
Practically.
The non-aligned movement has been falling apart.
I know. Soon we can't be part of the third world anymore. I love being a third world country.
There is Finland between Sweden and Russia has a history of not being able to get through them, so...
That's true. It's also why Sweden has the military that we do have is mostly naval because we have water between us.
That's true. Yeah. What else is going on in what's going on in Mia life?
What's going on in my life? Jesus. I don't know. I'm currently writing my upcoming video, which I can't talk too much about. Well, I can. I just don't want to. Uh, but I can say that I'm going to talk a bit about feminism on YouTube, which is going to be, I assume, entirely non-controversial.
Yeah, that stuff's easy. Someone
Oh
did.
yeah, I mean everyone does that. That's never going to backfire on me.
Someone did ask, aren't the Finnish military crazy, like held out against Russia for a long time? Yes, they did. Stalin thought they'd be a pushover.
Yeah, they held out for a long time. Yeah, it turns out that if you purge your entire military staff, people don't really know how to organize a military anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Whoops.
Yeah, there's
You can say a lot of things. You can say a lot of things about Stalin, and I'm not going to get too much into it. But like, if you purge like a significant amount of military officers and promote people based on basically nothing, people are gonna make dumb mistakes.
Yeah, this is actually like the story of World War II between Germany and Russia, because Germany went from having like an established Prussian, military tradition. But then as the war progressed and things started getting bad, Hitler like realigned the military leadership to be more sycophantically aligned with him, because he just eliminated anybody who disagreed with him. And then in the Soviet Union, it started like that, but then Stalin, for necessity reasons, had to put people, like get more people who were less sycophantically obsessed with him into positions of power, including dragging generals who had been in the Gulag for decades and bringing them back. And some of them, to like convince them to come back, had to get like full things done to like fix the fact that they were like half beaten to death as part of the process, including there were a few generals, or at least one general that I can recall, who had all of his teeth kicked out when he was during the purges, was in the Gulag.
He got new teeth.
He got metal teeth when he came back, and they made a Bond villain named after him, or based on him, right?
But that's the most hardcore thing in the universe, though. Imagine being like taken out of a gulag, being given metal teeth, and then given the task of like defeating Nazis.
Yeah.
This is the most bad. I don't know enough about the character though, so I don't want to say too much. From this basic description, amazing.
Yeah.
Why would you want to make that into a villain?
Yeah, well, what's it called? When what's his name was writing all of the James Bond novels, they made one of the villains, I think his name is Sabretooth or something like that, and he just had metal teeth. And there's a scene in one of the movies where he bites a shark to death.
Metal teeth is amazing. Yeah. Finland has but also like Finland, the Finnish troops last a long time because they're fighting on home turf, and Finland is full of lakes and mountains, and not mountains necessarily, but like lakes and woods and swampland, which is great defensive territory.
It's bad for everything else, but yes.
Well, it's bad for everything, but it's really good if you want to like stop like tanks from entering your lands.
Yeah, and they got those hardcore, what's it called, ski troopers.
Yeah, Sweden has those too. Yeah, Sweden has that's an interesting thing about Sweden as well. Like during the Winter War, is like a lot of Swedes went to fight Finland because Finland is seen as like our sister country, because Finland used to be part of the Swedish kingdom for ages, for hundreds and hundreds of years before Russia took it, and then they became independent during the revolution. But so Finland was still seen as like, a sister country, a very sibling country. So a lot of Swedes went over to fight for them, but a lot of Nazis went over to fight with them too. So in Sweden, there's a kind of mixed history where like we stand up, for our Nordic friends, and also they like a lot of Nazis did too. So it's a bit of a mixed history about that in Sweden. So Swedes don't really talk about like how Swedes used to act during the war. We basically just tried to be quiet while every Nazi and every communist just left the country to fight, and everyone else just stayed and hoped no one would invade.
Did Sweden not get conquered by? Was not Sweden not under Nazi occupation at some point?
Never. Sweden has never been occupied by a military force.
Okay, because
Ever.
they did occupy Norway and Denmark,
They
right?
did occupy Norway. Sweden gave Nazi Germany military access to pass through Sweden on their way into Norway, which bummer move. But also like the Swedish military was basically non-existent at that point. And Sweden also gave like Nazi Germany a very preferential trade agreements when it comes to like iron and copper and metals that raw industry in Sweden. But on the other hand, Sweden did also like become a big part of like a neutral country in occupied Europe where spies and resistance movements could organize and stay, be relatively safe, and also like where Jewish refugees could flee and things like that.
Someone asked, doesn't
So
one of
it's
those countries have the longest running
very
parliament?
mixed bag.
Yeah. Someone asked, doesn't one of those countries have the longest running parliament? The answer is yes, it's Iceland, with the all thing.
Yeah, Alting. I love the Alting.
Yeah, so there's... Oh, yeah, that's another thing that comes to mind, too, is that you were mentioning that Sweden... Like, I always think that, like... I think that was a couple streams ago, you mentioned that Sweden has this, like, reputation of itself as being this, like, cute and quirky progressive country with, like, it's Nokia and IKEA and, like, all cute things. And then I'm thinking...
Nokia is Finnish, and they will be very happy to remind you of that.
Okay, sorry. So there was that, but then, like, all I can remember is still, as you mentioned, that Sweden's still number one export is still heavy industry. It's still steel and iron.
Steel, iron, and guns, yeah.
And so it's just like, I'm just thinking of, like, the cutesy IKEA look for, like, these, like, steel mines and stuff like that.
Yeah. And, like, a lot of that also comes from, from land up north, where, where I am currently is, like, ancestral Swedish lands, and, southern Sweden has always been ancestral Southern land, but the north hasn't. The north is ancestral Sami land, but that's also where a lot of the minerals are. So, like, during the 1800s and 1700s, there was a lot of, like, colonization of the north. And there's still a lot of colonial overbearing on the north, on what is today northern Sweden, because like the Sami people do not have like any form of autonomy, like at all, basically. Just because they live on natural resources that Sweden really likes.
This is the exact same story as Northern Ontario with our Indigenous people. Although there is this sorry.
Yeah, so just someone is asking, like, if they are the top industries or just top exports. They're probably top exports. I don't know what the top industries in Sweden are. We do a lot of software things right now, so that might be like really the top, like a very service economy. But like Sweden historically anyway has been like a very big exporter of steel, minerals and weapons.
And steel is not just like dragged out of the ground, like steel has to be made. It's forged. It's iron hardened with. You know what? Well, I don't want to get into that part, but basically, like, it's called heavy industry, and that's the kind of stuff where you make forges and crucibles and things like that. And I'm just imagining like the IKEA crucible and like, oh gosh, there was a historical reenactment game that I played that was 100% accurate by the name of Europa Universalis 4. And my experience with Sweden, and I don't remember this part in the history textbooks, but can you tell a little bit more about Swedish Costa Rica and Swedish Cuba?
So Swedish Costa Rica and Swedish Cuba is obviously part of the greater Swedish Empire, which covered half of Europe, all of Siberia, and both of the Americas. So I hope that was a joke question, by the way, because I don't actually know. Yeah.
I don't know.
Like I think I have a fairly like good check on the very small Swedish colonial empire, but maybe we had Swedish Costa Rica.
There's
for
like
a bit.
There's like times where like you're like, what was that? There was one place.
We had New York for a bit. For a very short bit, we had New York.
Oh my.
And then the Dutch took it.
Because I always think of stuff like how you think that all this colonization, like everybody's had like weird play times with it, including there was a Scottish colony and I want to say modern day Nicaragua, where they thought that they could make a sea to sea transportation thing, but there was a mountain in the way. And on top of that, they brought over a whole bunch of sheep to start up industry, and sheep in the tropic don't exactly do all that great.
Not really.
So the colony, this is basically the colony that bankrupted Scotland and forced them to go to England with their tail between their legs and become part of the UK. So
Oh,
it was going to be called New Caledonia or something like that. Okay, so we do have some questions. One is, how do Swedes feel about Finland these days?
I mean, there's a lot of stereotypes because Finns are still the largest minority in Sweden, even after, what is it, 200 years or something since we lost it. So there's a lot of like semi-racist stereotypes where it's like, you know, they're all drunk and they have knives. But I think in seriousness, I think a lot of Swedes just think of Finland as like another Nordic country that's like a bit more violent than the other one.
Yeah, I could think
Which
of.
obviously isn't true. Like I have very close friends in Finland that I love very much, and they're not that much more violent than I am. But it's just a nice country. A lot of people go there on ferries to get drunk, but then they also go back to get drunk. So
I mean, you guys are all about the black metal. They're about the power metal. That's one big difference.
someone just corrected me in chat too. Sweden had Delaware, not New York. The Dutch took Delaware later on. Okay, yeah, Delaware. Close enough. It's all America.
America's so big that nobody notices when you're off by like a few thousand kilometers. No, New York and Delaware. You can drive from New York to Delaware in a day.
I have no idea where Delaware is. It's very close to each other, right?
Yeah, if you were to drive from New York City to Washington D.C., you'd have to pass through Delaware.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I wasn't that wrong. We were close to New York.
No, but the thing is, what I've learned from Europeans is that when they look at the map of the United States and the map of Canada and things like that, that they don't quite get the scale. And so, like, there's one time where when I was a student, a university student, there was a lot of French exchange students. And they were like all gonna pile into a rental car and was like, oh yeah, we're just gonna go to Quebec City, and they didn't realize that the distance it was like going from Paris to Poland for the weekend and driving.
Yeah, I think because Europeans think of a country as what Americans would probably consider like a state, just because American states are huge and America is just huge.
Mm-hmm.
And like Canada is also like huge, and Mexico is also like, I mean, all of the North American countries are just huge compared to European ones anyway. So I think a lot of people just think that, you know, if I can travel across 3 countries in Europe, I should be able to travel across 1 in America. But it doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
but I think also because like cities are very much further apart in America than they are in Europe, and the distances are just bigger in America, I think, because cities in Europe are very close together because, you know, over the thousands and thousands of years that they were founded, we were limited by our legs and horses. But America was founded in an age of, you know, sail and railroad and cars eventually. Mm-hmm. So I think distances are just bigger. And because of that, we you know, when we see 2 cities next to each other, you always assume that you're like, yeah, you can travel between them. But America, you can't.
Yeah,
so.
It can be tough. All right, I totally missed this, but Ariel did another $5 super chat. I just want to thank you very much for that and ask a question that maybe I might not be able to answer, and so this will be interesting. Was the Peruvian military coup of 1968, the 1977 Seychelles coup, and the Burma military coup of 1962 all left-wing military coups in your opinion?
I don't know enough about them to be honest. Which did you say? I know one of them. What is Peru?
The Peruvian coup of 68?
68. Because I know about it.
Okay. That's better than me. This is the first time I heard of all of them.
Some Peruvian roommates. so it helps. I just gotta check if it's the proper like date. Okay, yeah, I don't know enough about this to exactly, so I can't really answer either.
But could a left-wing military coup be possible? Yes. There's
Oh, definitely.
definitely a left-wing stream of revolution. I think it's called like Proudhonists or was it Proudhon? I don't know. There was like this idea, and it was very popular amongst the Bolsheviks. That was like that the revolution TM was going to be led by a bunch of a very engaged intellectual minority that would then lead the people forward, which very much has like you could definitely justify a military coup under that kind of thinking.
But also, like, there are many different types of what what a left wing military coup would even be. Because I think if I can double check. Yeah, so like in Nepal, for example, like the Napoleon Revolution ended in left wing getting into mainstream politics and the abdication of the absolute monarchy.
Yeah, that feels like a left-wing coup to me.
Like constitutional assembly elections. Leftists are allowed to be in politics, and the monarchy is no longer absolutist. Like, so it doesn't become this like the Soviet Union of Nepal. It just becomes a country where leftists are mostly relevant and around, that counters very anti-left ideas, which in many countries in the West is just pure capitalism, but in other countries like in Nepal, for example, it's the absolute monarchy.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense to me.
So it all depends on like it all depends on like what left wing even means. Just because left wing right now is very vague. I'm gonna have to make a video about that at some point in the future. Like what does it even mean to be left?
Yeah, I'm getting to that point too because like I'm starting to get really frustrated with like how invested people are becoming in like political compass tests and stuff like that, where it's like I don't think that you can actually map a person's political reality onto a Cartesian plane. And groups like groups that we should legitimately be terrified of, like Nazballs and like the anti-ID poll left, don't really fit, or we seem to be forced to consider them allies because we consider like, oh no, this is like left ally, left solidarity. We have to become friends with these homophobic leftists because otherwise Vaush will make a nasty video about you or something. I don't know.
Let's avoid drama.
All right. So like that kind of thing. As you call the dirty bag
like,
left.
Yeah, I've spoken about this in the past, and I shall refrain from doing so in the future, unless I do it in a video format where I can very carefully choose my words.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I know what you mean. Like there are definitely things that would probably technically fall within the purview of like left wing politics that I think most people just would not agree with at all. And there are many things that are mutually exclusive when it comes to the left. But on the same, it's a very vague idea, but I think it has very good historical explanations.
Yeah.
That I think we can take advantage of.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be like probably next year for me, because I already have a couple of videos in my pipeline that's not specifically things.
Yeah. Left and right as like like as factions, like actual like political groups that have a historical precedent, mostly based out of the French reactions to the French Revolution. Are
like the French Assembly.
Yeah.
They sat on the left.
Mm-hmm. So there is something to be said about that as like a social cultural construct that has born out of a discussion about how you felt about the French Revolution. Because like you could trace modern conservatives to the liberal backlash against the French Revolution by like people like mostly British people. British people who like their monarch, and then you could say like like the revolutionaries and the reaction to the revolutionaries, the people who thought that the liberal revolutionaries weren't looking out for them. Like there is definitely a heritage there that spills over into all of this thought that makes the left real in that sense, but as like this is like a Cartesian plane of all political discourse, and you can put yourself as a thing, as a negative this, positive that thing, and that would make sense. Is it causes problems.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people just focus too much on labels these days. That's why I don't label myself politically at all anymore. Simply because people will read too much into that.
Yeah, I used to
A
have
lot.
my
I've seen that a lot of like left tubers or whatever also do that as well, because the second you label yourself, there's a bunch of like baggage that comes with that I feel aren't productive. Especially when a lot of people just have the same ideas, they just call them different things.
I remembered once for a while my Twitter profile was I put on it I found a random ideology generator and I put one on, and I remembered that it caused so many trolls to just like freak out and get mad about like what is this ideology? Yes. This person's awful. Like what? Like this is not. The term was progressive techno Marxist.
I love that. Oh, perfect. I love that. Progressive techno Marxist. That's why I call myself a Mulderist.
Mulderist?
If I'm Mulderist. So if you have the same political ideas that I do, you're a Mulderist. What are those political beliefs? Well, that's not really relevant for this discussion.
Take this political compass test that puts you on a 1 to negative or 10 to negative 10 scale about how much you agree or disagree with me, Mulder.
Yeah. I mean, one day I'm probably going to publish a book on political ideology, but I doubt it. I doubt it's going to come out soon.
Okay, so one question we got here is Denmark more right-wing than other social democracies? I think Sam Cedar said that when he was reporting on Trump trying to buy Greenland.
Right now, Denmark is definitely more racist than a lot of other social democratic northern countries. I mean, that's not to say that other democratic, like socialist, like other Nordic countries, because that's usually what people mean anyway, aren't racist, because like Sweden and Norway and Finland definitely have their elements of racism, especially when it comes to like indigenous populations and the refugee crisis. There's a lot of it. But Denmark has all of that as well, except that they don't have the indigenous population of the Sami, but they do have the indigenous population of Greenland that they haven't dealt well with over the last couple of 100 years. But also, like during the refugee crisis, they really turned up their racism to an awful extent, because there were a lot of people who were trying to pass into Norway and Sweden via Denmark. And what Denmark would do, I think the most like extreme point is that first they would just like shuttle off people through their country and just dump them on the Swedish border. People seeking asylum in Denmark still has the right to seek asylum in Denmark. Like they can't just shove them off into Sweden. And also during that process, they would fund their refugee relocation scheme thing by like confiscating valuables from refugees. So, you know, if people had jewelry or rings or basically anything of value, the Danish, like basically border police could just like take it.
That's terrifying.
They said that they wouldn't do it if things have sentimental value. But you know, they get to be the judge of what has sentimental value because they're the guards. They're the ones in power. So it's like,
I just wanted
yikes, huge yikes.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of people who were coming through from Denmark, and they basically had all their possessions taken from them. You know, what little they had taken from them from Syria, usually, because this was during the Syrian like on the height of the crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of people coming into Sweden who basically had no possessions at all, because the Danish authorities had just taken them all and then just kicked them out of the country, which is horrific. And then Swedish nationalists basically took that and said like, oh, look at these people, they're so poor, they shouldn't be here, and then they wanted to kick them back into Denmark. Frustrates me to no end.
I can imagine. I just wanted to, I know this is like a dark topic, I just wanted to not let this chat pass, which was uphold Tristanus Mulderist thought. The immortal science of Tristanism, Mulderism.
I have no idea how much of a political idea is. Like, if we have to go into the nitty gritty of political leftist ideology, like some people really like to do, I have no idea how much we actually. But I like to think that we're both cool enough that we both basically have the same goals. So
Yep.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do like the idea of Tristan's Mulderism.
Okay.
Tristan's Mulder.
The TM. Everyone's gonna hate TMs on Twitter at some point.
Eventually.
Okay, so
in 200 years.
Yeah. One thing that's kind of sad about that story of Denmark is didn't the king of Denmark during World War II have like a very specific like empathy for Jewish people and like
I don't know too much about this because I don't know that much about Denmark, unfortunately, Danish history, unfortunately. And it's just at the end of like my historical field. But I know that the simple version of it is like overly simplified is that like as the Danish leadership basically realized, okay, the Nazis are gonna invade like any second now, because you can tell usually, like it doesn't come out of nowhere. They try to like basically kick their entire, as much as they can, of the entire Jewish population just out of Denmark and into Sweden, just to like hope that they wouldn't also invade Sweden. I know the Danish king, he was still in Denmark during the occupation, as opposed to the Norwegian monarchy or the Dutch monarchy, or who all went into exile.
mm-hmm.
The Danish king, I remember, was still like in Denmark, in Copenhagen during the war. But I don't know that much about his sympathy, unfortunately.
Okay.
He seems nice though. He was probably nice because I remember him. I remember reading about him like walking through the street and like saying hi to people and like trying to keep spirits up and things. Trying to get a very like beneficial occupation deal during the war.
Yeah, I think I have like very vague memories of the possibility that he like he knew that he couldn't be like whisked away and murdered, so he did stuff like wear the Star of David on him and stuff like that. I don't remember. I could be completely wrong.
That tracks because I remember reading about him being like a total troll against the Nazis. So that would track.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't get away with that.
All right, so now that we're just mapping out the political landscape of Northern Europe, is Norway more left wing than Sweden now? From Nick Tremere, 1998.
Sorry, what did you say? You kind of glitched out.
Oh, sorry. Is Norway more left wing than Sweden?
No idea. I don't think so. No, I don't think they are, because I think they partnered with their far right party in a coalition thing to support them, same as Denmark did a couple of years earlier. Sweden hasn't done that yet, unfortunately. But because in our latest election, where the far right kind of got a significant power, basically our entire centrist bloc that typically has sided with the right-wing alliance, and which isn't uncommon in a lot of Nordic countries, they bailed on the right-wing alliance and supported the left instead, because they had like a zero tolerance policy against our far right parties. So I would say that we are like a center-left thing, kind of. I would kind of say that from what I remember of the Norwegian elections, that they are, slightly center-left, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong, because it's possible that I've missed an election in Norway.
Someone just said this whole stream is basically Mia rank the Nordic countries from left to right.
Well, Sweden is number one, obviously. I have
Mm-hmm.
no bias here. What are you talking about?
Um, then Mia goes, I don't know enough to do that, then immediately segues into saying incredibly well informed things. That's
I like to think, okay, so the Dunning-Kruger effect is real, right? But I have no idea where on it I am on any topic, so I will just assume that I know nothing about anything, and then just hope that I do correctly.
it's true. Sometimes I'm like, I feel really dumb about a topic, and then I'll remember like 20,000 things that are like, oh. But also, the Dunning Kruger effect is odd because on any given day, you can feel like you're like king of the world, and then also feel like you're a complete idiot within like an hour of each other.
Yeah. Well, that's me when I study, like, whenever I start to read Kraftebing again, I feel like a total idiot. And then I realize 99% of the world has no idea who he even is. So
You just have
it's like a metronome. It just go back and forth.
do you at least have like 6 academics somewhere that are also studying this person? You can all just like geek out.
No, this is the thing. Okay, this is actually a good thing because when I studied it, when I wrote some papers on it, I tried to find like another academic to like, hey, do you know like any like another person who's written about this like ever? Because this was in like 2013, and not a lot of people had written about like trans history at that point. So I like tried to reach out to like a lot of people, and I found a girl in Delaware, no, in Detroit, sorry, because we talked about Delaware earlier, in Detroit, at some like history of ideas course, and she was like a professor there or something. And that's the only other person I've ever found.
Oh man, you two gotta
does
get
the same like specific niche thing that I do. I'd love to meet her someday. I haven't talked to her in 5 years or something, but I remember talking to her and being like, "Hey, there's 2 of us, at least." And she was a professor and she did it, and she didn't know anyone else either. She couldn't refer me to anyone else.
You can make her a mug.
Oh, I'd love to make her a mug with Kraftebing on the front.
Mm-hmm. And a body pillow.
Oh, I'd love a Kraftebing body pillow. He would probably call that like very fetishistic, but he would be correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we got a question here. The other TLDR News made a video. Okay, TLDR News made a video where they claimed that Boris Johnson could win the next election if he manages to strong arm Parliament into accepting the deal they rejected from May. Agree or disagree? Oh boy, British politics. All right, a Swede and a Canadian talk British politics. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I think that he could probably win. I don't think he needs to strong arm anyone to do it though. That's my opinion. That's my take. I don't think he'll be able to strong arm Parliament into accepting a deal though. I don't think that's ever gonna happen. But I still think he would win the. I still think that he could win a general election.
I mean, of course, Boris Johnson could win the election if he was able to force people who have voted against that bill now 3 times to vote yes on it, because that would be a parliamentary miracle.
Yeah.
That's the thing about the UK is that it's stuck in such a impasse where there's no deal that the British would accept, that the Europeans would accept, and also for some reason there's like a poisoning of the well where it's like there's basically no way for the British to be like to take back the Brexit vote. Like they seem to have really poisoned the well about what's it called? A second referendum.
Yeah, I think it's also because it's split 3 ways, and democracy doesn't work well when that happens. When there are 3 kind of mutually, when there are 3 mutually excluding options, democracy doesn't. It kind of bugs out at that point because there are some people who want to stay with the EU, and there are some people who want to leave the EU, and then there are some people who want to leave the EU with a deal. So, and because of that, no one can get a majority in anything, because everyone is just wants their own thing that is mutually exclusive to anything else. So we end up in this situation where despite the majority of people wanting Brexit, they can't decide what kind of Brexit they want, and that's why we're in the quagmire. But the only like real way to fix it is to not do Brexit. But not enough people don't want to do Brexit, so
Yeah.
it just kind of glitches out.
Mm-hmm. And also because like also the political landscape has changed where the next election that I think is getting called or has been called or something, a snap election, is basically going to be Boris Johnson versus Jeremy Corbyn, which is basically no deal versus different deal, which would basically like a labor government deal would probably end up being a very it would end up being like a completely different deal that would need to be renegotiated, and you guys have less than 2 months.
Yeah, there are some people who say there are a lot of people who say that the only way that Labour can actually do anything is if they go like full Remain, and I kind of think that that's what they should do.
Mm-hmm.
But I can kind of also see why they don't want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't envy anybody in the UK, any politician, because there's no way out that will make there's no way out that won't make the majority of people mad at you.
I have a solution. I think I mentioned this last time I was here, but I have a very good solution to the British Brexit problem, and it's a system that the British themselves have used several times, so we know it works. It's a very British solution for a British problem. We simply divide up the UK into remaining and leave zones, and the remain zones can basically like they can be, you know, the EU minus kind of like and everyone that voted remain and everyone that voted leave, all those areas can just form like their own republic somewhere else, and I'm sure this will not at all form any kind of problem.
That's
So
probably
we just draw a line somewhere like right in the middle of the UK and just divide it up.
Mm-hmm. That's gonna happen. It's just that it's probably gonna happen. It's just that line is called Scotland.
Probably, yeah.
I do think
we need some way to just like dig out London as well, because London is also like very Remain.
Isn't there like it's a really weak movement, but there is a movement to turn London into like a city state like San Marino or Liechtenstein
I'd be game for that. I'd love to have London as a city state. I love London.
Mm-hmm. I do.
I'd
yeah.
love for it to
the United Kingdom of Scotland plus London. That would be interesting. I definitely think though that that leaving the EU does not come with Scotland. I feel like Scotland's not going to put up with Brexit, especially because they know they got the support to leave and they could just reach.
I don't know. I don't think. I'm not sure any type of like pro-EU, pro-independence movement can crystallize in time or like quickly enough or powerfully enough. Because I honestly kind of expect right now to see a no-deal Brexit with all of the UK, and that it just stays like that.
Oh yeah, well I would think that it would be a post-Brexit Scottish leaving and applying to join the EU.
Yeah, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't really have that much. I don't have that much confidence in like pro-EU movements. Unfortunately, I'd love to see it. We'd love to see it. I just haven't seen it yet. Like, I haven't seen enough build-up of it for the potential of a no deal happening. Maybe no deal is gonna be such a shock to the system that it might actually happen, but maybe, and that would be really interesting to see. But I don't know.
Well, the thing is, like,
it's been talk of another another Scottish independence referendum, and that would be interesting to see first.
Yeah, the Scottish National Party is still in charge. Scotland voted overwhelmingly to remain, and yeah, I think that a no-deal Brexit, when you have the trouble starting again at the border with Northern Ireland, and you have like ships crossing the English Channel that are literally backed up for like months with like all of the food and things that the UK needs because they have no like customs. They have to get now all these ships have to go through customs. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be a huge disaster. And I can imagine that a shock like that could push Scotland, because Scotland got pretty close last time to voting for independence, that it could just push them over the edge there.
It could, yeah. That's true. Brexit wasn't even a thing in the last referendum, was it?
No, it was before. It was like 2014, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, shit. Yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah, Brexit could probably tip the scales.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, like, I think I would still like to see for such a big thing, like England and Scotland, that unity has been in place for hundreds and hundreds of years. I still think for it to actually properly happen, I think we'd need more than like 51%. We'd need a way bigger like swell of support for independence
Mm-hmm.
than just like slightly ahead of the edge. I mean, it might technically be possible, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to actually happen. But then again, I thought the same about Brexit. Here we are.
Yeah, someone said, who makes you think that London would let Scotland leave? And I was just thinking, like, the European Union would probably be like, because like every European country has a section of it that wants to be independent, that they might be like, actually no. But
Yeah.
but the other end would be that they might do it because they want to punish the UK for leaving the European Union.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be a very like balanced decision thing, because if the EU would be pro Scottish independence, then Catalonia is going to be interested in that too, and so are a lot of countries going to be,
See,
like a lot of independence movements.
optimistic Tristan a few years ago was like, hey, if the EU can be like a stronger, more unified thing, then all of those little countries could break off and it would be no big deal. But that's
Yeah.
not the direction we seem to be going these days. Okay, so the next question is, what voting system does Sweden use? Is it a full-blown proportional representation or some sort of complex system?
No, we just have a proportional representation thing, I think.
Oh man,
Yeah. It's
it's
not. It's like I don't vote for. I don't. I can vote for a specific person, uh, to like take my seat thing. But the thing is, there are so many seats in local elections and stuff like that to represent me. So yeah, it's not like my area has a specific MP that I vote for. It's that um there like every party kind of has like every party like has a specific number of people for a certain specific number of areas, uh, and depending on how many seats they get in parliament, that also depends on like how many votes each individual person got and they get in there. But the representation is all about like the percentage of votes converted into seats in parliament, and then that kind of dictates like how much power each party has. So it doesn't really matter like how much you win in an individual area. It all matters how much of the percentage of the vote you get, and then gets translated into parliamentary seats. But you do need at least 4% of the vote as a political party to get into parliament. If you get 3.9%, you are not represented in parliament.
see
We had
like
a big deal about that 2 elections ago when the Feminist Initiative, which is a feminist party, which was very, very left wing, but was like dedicatedly feminist. They got like 3.7% of the vote, which obviously also cuts into like the left party votes because they have very overlapping voter bases, which didn't go to the left because it went to the Feminist Initiative. So a lot of people were really angry at the Feminist Initiative for stealing votes, even though if they had gotten like 4% of the vote, that would be another party in government potentially, or in parliament at least, that would take up 4% of the voting block thing and could go into coalitions.
yeah.
But they got 3.7 or something like that, so they got nothing.
I just love how like Sweden is just like, oh yeah, we use proportional representation, it's fine. Oh yeah, we've covered free university, it's fine. It's just like, because here like university is still like costs money, not as much as America, but still costs about a bunch of money. Like my going to university put me in 5 digits of debt, not 6 digits of debt.
Jesus.
But then but also here, like last election, electoral reform was like one of the biggest political issues. And so what comes out of that is we have three major political parties, and one was like, no, we're going to keep it the way it is. One was like, we'll change it to ranked voting, and one was like, we'll change it to proportional representation. Then the party that won was the one that wanted to change to ranked voting. Then they immediately said, well, now that we've won, actually no.
Yeah, of course they did.
And you know what? They're the Liberal Party, so goddamn, it's Justin Trudeau and his party.
Typical.
So, but the thing is, there was like they knew because there was an active campaign last election, which was to vote for who was ever the not conservative in your riding, because then if we can get a majority government of people who want electoral reform, you can have a democratic election in the next election. And then the Liberals were like, okay, thanks for all the help. Peace. And so like we're like electoral reform and what to do about elections, and also about whether or not we should keep the Senate, is like the big issues we're dealing with. And yet
we still have a Senate?
We do. They're appointed by the Prime Minister and they serve for life. It's kind of like a retirement home for elder politicians. They can't propose legislation, but they can send legislation back for revisions.
See, because we kind of have that too. It's just like it's just like a branch of the government, but it's not like, that goes away when the government goes away.
Yeah.
And they don't really have any power.
Canada's system is awful. Canada's an awful, and also the fact is that it's for the federal government,
I'm so sorry.
And we're super decentralized. So our provincial governments mean a lot more than our federal government, which means that I get Doug Ford, our premier, matters for some things, and then Justin Trudeau matters for other things. So some things we've got a centrist lib who like Vox.com readers love, but then we've got Doug Ford who is like Donald Trump light at the province level. So it's like, which is this thing moving in a overtly right-wing dumb direction, or is it moving in a slightly right-wing slick liberal direction? And it depends upon who's in charge of it.
Both.
Yep.
See, that's what I like. I don't want to sound like, I never want to sound like a nationalist. I'm very much an anti-nationalist, but Sweden is fucking great sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got a grant for going to university, like free money. Our electoral system is pretty great. Our king has no power at all, compared to the British monarch, which can like just suspend parliament for a bit if she wants to.
That's the other thing. People are like making a big deal about the proroguing of parliament, and it's like, what's it called? Stephen Harper, our conservative prime minister, did that like less than 10 years ago. And the Governor General, who's the Queen's representative in Canada, went through with it too. So this is not the first government she's fucked up.
Like, why haven't you just stopped her from doing this?
I don't know. There's a 90-year-old lady in London who keeps telling us what we can do.
Well, I mean, there are a bunch of people who tell her what to do.
So we have been, this is a secret, but Canada's been secretly poisoning the corgis, and how you notice there aren't any more. So that's we've gotten our revenge.
I don't know. Like, you can say a lot of shit about the Swedish royal family, and like, I do a lot, but at least they don't actually have any power.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can be pro monarchy, I guess, if you want to be. You just don't have but you can also like be against the monarch having the powers of like, I don't know, the monarchical power to dissolve democracy because Boris Johnson wants it to.
Yep, proroguing parliament is a weird thing, and that happened. What happened? It happened in Canada because Stephen Harper. There was like this will sound not sketchy at all. He did it to stop a vote of non-confidence when he had a minority government.
Great. Lovely. Love that. Love to see that. You love to see it.
You love to see it. Also, the thing is, the Conservatives have, through political like machinations, basically poisoned in the public the discussion of coalition governments. So
why
they say that they have convinced a significant amount of Canadians that coalition governments are bad, and that they are that they subvert democracy. And so he ruled with a majority government where he had 100% of power with 37% of the popular vote for 4 years.
Christ.
Because we have a split left.
Christ almighty, that's awful.
It is.
Just do what Sweden did and just have the left win over 50% of the vote for like 60 years in a row.
Mm-hmm. we do, and also the other thing too is that we've had one party that has ruled the country for something like 70% of the time the country has existed.
Yeah, but we have that too. Like this, like as I said, like the Social Democrats here used to win like 60% of the vote, like every single year, from like between the 40s, or like even like between the 20s and like the 80s or 90s.
Yeah,
almost every single year.
For us, it's the liberals, and I'd rather have a social democratic hegemony than a liberal hegemony.
Yeah, I mean, like, because we do not have the same aversion to coalition governments here, simply because of that. Because every single political ideology in Sweden just banded together to fight the Social Democrats, like the Giga Party.
Well, the thing is, so Justin Trudeau's rationale when he said, actually, we're not going to do democracy, we're going to keep doing it the way we are now, is
we're
that
just not going to do it.
He's like, if we moved to proportional representation, then everyone would have a political party and it'd be tons of small parties, and then we would never be able to form government. And that he specifically, and this, talk about, okay, this is so disingenuous. He was like, you could have a strict anti-Islamic party exist and get seats, and we don't want that to happen, so we're just going to keep these big, broad coalitions.
Yeah, we're just going to keep this huge almost two-party system that doesn't mean anything because it's so broad. Jesus Christ, that pisses me off so bad. Like, okay, so that happened. Like, there are like Sweden has had issues with that too, right? We have like 8 political parties, which is good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, we have 5. No, sorry, we have 6 with seats, but like 2 of them have 1 seat and 1 of them has 2 seats.
1 seat.
Yes, we have. So we have the.
Oh yeah, because of course, because you have the system. Yeah, that makes.
So we have the Liberal Party, that. So we have about 300 seats in Parliament, and the Liberal Party has the majority. They can pass anything they want. The Conservatives are after that. The NDP, which are a social democratic party that is slowly, as more millennials get involved with it, transforming into a democratic socialist party, which we stand.
Yeah.
And then after that, there's the Bloc Québécois, which has 13 seats and is a Quebec separatist party. And then there's the Social Credit Party, which is one NDP politician who got ousted from the party for being creepy towards a woman and decided to make his own political party and break off. So it's just him. Then there's the People's Party, which is Maxime Bernier's attempt to break off the far right from the Conservative Party, which is turning into an epic disaster because he's done stuff like leave top secret files in a restaurant by accident and weird stuff like that.
Wow.
and then there's the Green Party, which has almost 10% of the popular vote, but only 1 seat because it's spread out amongst the country.
Yeah, of course. See, that's what pisses me off too, because like, sure, the 4% barrier in Sweden, like that you need 4%, that at least means that if you get 4% of the vote, no matter how spread out it is or wherever it is, or even how like insignificant it is, those 4% of the population will be represented in Parliament.
Oh, sorry, they have
how democracy
1.
is supposed to work, right?
There are 2 Green Party seats because there's 1 in Vancouver, which is just like the hippiest part of the country. But then there's 1 person who crossed the aisle and became a Green Party person, and he's been there. And I think there's also an independent in there somewhere too.
Incredible.
Yeah.
God bless.
Canada's such a mess. All right. If you were invited on Tucker Carlson's show, would you refuse, or would you go on and tell him he's a shit to his face like Rutger Bregman did?
I'd go on. Easy. Would you?
I probably would. I would love for the memes to call him a shit heel.
I'd love to be there and have a long discussion with him, but slowly but surely, like, drop in more and more things about how awful he is.
You could also do
until he becomes so frustrated that I just dab, and then I leave.
Make him, yeah. You can make him cry, or remember that time when they were talking about Edward Snowden and they invited the weird Twitter user @fart onto so when Edward Snowden got a Twitter account, obviously the journalists at this like very lazy place got marching orders to just find like a person who understands Twitter to interview to talk about it, and they got Fart, the like one of like the biggest names in like weird Twitter, and he went on live TV and for a embarrassingly long amount of time was talking up like when they were talking about Edward Snowden, he responded by talking about Edward Scissorhands. And for like, you could tell she wasn't paying attention, so she just like had a list of questions to go through, and he kept responding as if he was responding to accusations against Edward Scissorhands.
I need to see this.
I should find it.
I love this.
Let me see.
No, I don't know. Like, I think I would go. I would actually gladly debate a lot of people on their platform, not on mine. I'd never invite someone else to my platform.
I'll put it in the chat for people.
But I would love to. I'm gonna open this up and save it to myself.
I sent it to you as a DM too.
Sweet. Yeah. I would love to be on his platform.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I'm hoping.
I would love to spread like trans leftist propaganda to Fox News viewers. That would be great. I would love that.
Yeah, I think there is a way to talk to a certain segment of people who would watch Tucker Carlson that might turn them in a certain way. Like, I do think that there is a segment of the population that is they are afraid. They have legitimate fears about their economic future, and they have unfortunately decided to scapegoat minorities in that. And I think that if you could speak to them and say, like, kind of like how when Bernie Sanders went on Joe Rogan could say, like, it's not the Muslims, it's not the women, it's not the trans women, it's not the trans men, it's your boss is taking your shit.
It's your boss. It's your landlord. These are the people.
Yeah. And I think that could resonate with certain people.
Yeah. I mean, obviously my inbox would be full of chaos for like a year, but it would be worth it.
Yeah. You'd go down in history.
I'd also just love to just troll because I know there are a bunch of like young conservative Fox News viewers. I would love to just troll them by going like because I start out very professional, obviously, because it's Fox News and you want to keep the conversation going. And like over time, you just become more of a shitheel against Tucker Carlson, and also you become more and more like lewd and sexy, so that old people they don't catch up with it because they only resonate in the first bit. The like very horny like Turning Point USA like 20-something conservative dudes eventually are just going to be so horny so that they have no choice but to turn communist.
Yeah, I think what's it called? If you was over Skype, you could do that that outfit you teased in the video.
Oh god.
Just answer like that. Hello.
Hello. This is the ordained Antifa outfit.
This is the Antifa uniform.
Yeah, exactly. I am the leader of Antifa.
Oh man, if you can convince Tucker Carlson that you are like the queen of Antifa and that you are willing to give an interview.
I'd love that. Hi, I'm one of the leaders of Antifa. I would love to have a conversation. I could probably get away with that, actually.
All right, I do have 2 more super chats from Ariel Fernandez. Thank you, Ariel. That are just quotes. No question, just quotes. Little sister, he doesn't love you. He has like 50 women and you know it. He abuses you and afterwards you defend him. You cry every time I don't understand this at all. That man is a
Maybe
rat. There's no man who can force you to be with him. You can leave. Why don't you? I think this is maybe like possibly about Brexit, but I don't know.
Possibly.
I'm confused. But
I'm
thank
also
you.
confused.
Much appreciated. All right, next question is: should we, this guy being a English person, should we Brits be worried about Labour? Worried Labour won't be able to get power again if Scotland leaves the UK? And I'm like, I thought,
What? Like
doesn't
no
Scotland
one.
vote SNP?
Yeah, a lot of people in Scotland just vote SNP instead. Like, Labour hasn't had very much success in Scotland for a bit, so I don't think. I think that, you know, I. It's not necessarily that left-wing ideas aren't popular in like outside of Scotland in the UK. It's just that they're split between like very. It's split, and also you don't have a representational political system, so a lot of those ideas don't matter. Like leftists in conservative areas, for example, they're not represented. So
And vice versa.
and a common like issue also is that like representatives that represent urban areas like with more and more people, that more densely packed people, their vote is not like the people who vote for them doesn't matter as much for people who vote for people who only represent a very few people. And leftists live by and large in densely populated areas. And if it's not, if you have like a representative instead of having like a representational system,
Mm-hmm.
just by leftists living closer together to other leftists means that it kind of gets cracked. The vote kind of gets cracked and like pooled into one specific person, but not necessarily give that person enough power, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Labour has enough traction in outside of Scotland as well to get significant amount of power
Yeah.
if they actually like do it.
Yeah. The Conservatives don't have a lot to offer people. I feel like Labour just needs to. Let me tell you, Labour, how to win your elections as someone who has been to England once. Just I think that there's kind of like a thing where there's in a lot of left-wing parties, this is true in Canada too, where there's been this consensus that you can't go too left-wing and you can't criticize conservative politics too hard or else you're going to lose. That was kind of like shell shock from the 80s. And I think that one of the things that needs to be done in these parties is realize that there's like a legitimate hurt, a legitimate anger, and a legitimate injustice in our economic system. And you know it, you believe in it. And the thing is, that is a message that can resonate with people. We don't have to be afraid of like Cold War rhetoric anymore.
Yeah. It's why a lot of people are. It's why like Bernie Sanders is getting like a lot of individual donations, whereas a lot of people vote Biden because they know his name and they think he's electable. But we gotta focus on we need to think less about being presentable for people who won't vote for leftist policies anyway, and just promote actual leftist policies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Toronto Star just had a thing that came out that said 58% of Canadians have a positive opinion of socialism. So like these are things you can win on.
Yeah, like we just need to embrace what we actually are instead of like trying to present a very I don't know,
Friendly.
a very like electable, friendly, like because that's not what we are as leftists. We don't we don't do the PR move of being the less bad option. We're supposed to be the good option.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just gonna keep it okay. We're actually gonna make it good. I don't know.
Yes.
Eventually I'm gonna make a video about this as well.
Make America great for the first time.
Yeah.
Okay. We are just like got about 25. Oh yeah, you're a little blurry.
Yeah. Hello.
It lost your face. There we go. We have a few questions left and not a ton of time, so we'll see what we can go. All right, so Ariel Fernandez for $2 super chat says no. Okay.
No. Sorry for speaking too much, a lot, by the way.
No. This is fun. This
There's a
is the
lot.
entertainment. This is the back and forth that plants crave.
The prestige.
The prestige. Yeah, it's not every day we get the Nordic model to come in. And
Ollie really cemented that name for me, by the way. I didn't pick that myself. Ollie really made sure that name stuck with me.
It works. So the next question we have here is thoughts on the single transferable vote. I think it would help with shit like what you said described with the Feminist Party.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think there's a mix of the, especially if like a single transferable vote and a proportional representation where if who you vote for doesn't qualify for the 4%, it transfers to your second choice, then yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So that all vote that you actually want to go to a political party goes to a party that will actually get in.
Yeah.
And I think that would be great.
Because otherwise, there's nothing wrong with voting for a strict feminist party.
Yeah, exactly. That would make it a lot, because a lot of people don't vote for the feminist initiative here anymore because they feel they won't win anyway. So it's just a wasted vote. But with a single transferable vote, you can vote for it, and if they don't get in, you can just vote for the one you were gonna vote for anyway.
Yeah, it's why horrible people like yours truly have voted liberal in the past. Not anymore. That won't happen again. I will never make that mistake again.
Bless.
All right, so Ariel Fernandez with another super chat says that was quotes from a song from Aventura about a woman in an abusive relationship and her brother is trying to convince her to leave her abusive husband. Well, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Otherwise, I was like, this is a little scary. Ariel Fernandez is from Florida and likes to share little bits of Floridian and Latin American culture with me, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so this is from Grimthorpe 101. What do you think about the two-party system in the USA, and what would you do to fix it? Oh boy, the USA is. The thing is, like, we're talking about like normal country messed up politics, like America. Like, the thing is, like, there's like the things. There's the problems Europe has, the problems the world has, and then there's the problems America has, and it's like
its own. It's a level of its own.
Like, not only does it have first past the post voting, but they intentionally draw the lines of those zones in order to benefit certain political parties. Like,
yeah, and you know, the Senate still exists, and it's wild in that way too. It's so bad. It's so bad. I don't know.
Yeah,
I would to fix it. You would need to abolish the Senate first of all. And shift basically all the powers of the Senate into the
House.
into the House, exactly. The Electoral College would have to go because that's also a thing that exists for some reason. You wouldn't have to have like proportional representation so that people who vote for third parties could actually get some representation. Yeah,
there's a lot. It would take a bit.
That's a start. That's a start. If you do that,
yeah.
you're at like level 1 of normal country fuck up.
Yeah, so there is one promising thing though that we can go to, which is unfortunately the way that American politics works, especially with the Electoral College, is you're basically locked into two parties. Like, that's unfortunate, but that is the case. Yeah. But the thing about there is something called the Multi-State Compact, which I think is an interesting process to get around the Electoral College, which is a group of states. So, like, the thing is, when you vote for president, you don't actually vote for president. You vote for what the electors will vote for president. And them not listening to the voters of the state actually is just punishable by a $1,000 fine. Mm. So there's something called the Multi-State Compact, which is that they will, these states will vow to give their Electoral College votes to whoever wins the popular vote, no matter who it is. Oh. And if they can get to a tipping point, which they're actually reasonably close to, then the popular vote will win the election.
Yeah. That seems interesting, but it sounds like a solution. It really sounds like putting gum on a bridge that's about to collapse. Like, it'll help, but we need to fix something.
Yes. Well, it all comes to the fact that America's Constitution is uniquely difficult to change.
It's incredible.
And really, if America wanted to make some of the big changes that they would need to be have normal country problems, it would involve a rewrite of the American Constitution, which
I would like propose the radical idea that you should just abolish the Constitution and just start from scratch.
yeah,
Because like the American Constitution has like the Swedish Constitution has like 4 laws in it, and the rest are just like normal laws. And that's like the king is king. We have freedom. We have freedom of the press and freedom of speech, and we have elections. And that's basically it. Like it's the most basic thing in the world.
hmm
Because that's how it's supposed to be. Like the most basic things. A constitution is supposed to be like the most foundational things of your country, not everything, which America has decided to just slap on everything into its constitution. Like you can ban slavery. It doesn't have to be in the constitution. You can just ban it as a normal law. Like it's fine. You can give like everyone the vote. It doesn't have to be in the constitution. It has to be a normal ass law. Like normal laws also exist. Not everything has to be in the constitution.
yeah.
I'm just saying.
The troublesome thing they had there is that the Constitution has a thing that says that local laws supersede federal laws or something like that.
Yeah.
So they always have to. The Constitution
Yeah, so
is.
it's understandable why it is the way it is. I'm just saying it's a bad way of doing it. I think like states should probably have less power, but that's just me.
Yeah. America is. So that's the main thing. The Constitution is like the number one thing that is log jamming a lot of its political processes that needs to be abolished and redone.
Also, governors. Why do you have governors?
We have premiers that are kind of like that, but that's because
Why?
Canada's a confederacy. It's a
I mean, yeah. Your confederacy, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought you were federal.
no.
Not confederal. Oh,
we're yeah. We have a federal government that only really covers a few very small things and international stuff, but then the provinces completely take care of themselves for most other things. Like our healthcare system is like we have a constitutional. We have it in the Constitution that all the provinces have to give healthcare to all of their citizens, but the provinces are in charge of maintaining their business. So, like, my health card is an Ontario health card, not a Canadian one.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I learned something.
It's a weird, and that's why, like, and also even that international thing is weird because provincial premiers have actually gone on international missions and stuff like that before. Like
On their own.
the premier of like Alberta, which is like our oil province, has like gone to America to make deals and stuff like that. So
Why?
yeah, it's not.
I mean, we have chieftains here, but they're mostly ceremonial. Like,
And your jarls, the jarls.
yeah, of course. I mean, we don't call them jarls. We just call them chieftains.
The house carls.
We wish. I wish. Those went away when Jesus came to Sweden.
Are right-wing groups in Scandinavia against your Holiday Inn like jails? So Holiday Inn is a chain of hotels. So
What was the question?
are the right in Scandinavia against how humane Scandinavian prisons are?
Oh, yeah. The Swedish right wing wants to make Swedish prisons basically like American.
Just take 1 in 100 people, mostly the black ones, and just put them in there forever.
Yeah, basically they want to make it harsher. They don't want to reward criminality. There's currently like violent. I should say this: violent crime in Sweden is going down per capita. It's going down. It has been going down for a significant amount of time, and this is observable facts that we can check and that we can know. But there have been a couple of high-profile shootings in Malmö because everyone likes to shit on Malmö because that's what the far right thinks is like overrunning with like Islamic terror and everything. It's not. Malmö's fine. Violence is going down. But there have been a couple of high-profile things recently. So now everyone wants to talk with the far right party on how to fix the murder rate, and it's like,
well, I mean,
it's going better. Things are going better as it is. We don't need to invite the Nazis to fix it.
This is the country where the right had a freak out when Sweden. You remember when Sweden became the rape reporting capital of the world, and then everyone
Oh yeah,
interpreted
I
that as
remember when we changed the definition of what rape is, yeah, and what sexual assault is, so that more people can report it, and so that we can do better to fight it. Yeah, I remember that, and everything went to shit.
so like the right
The
aren't
entire
honest actors,
world.
really.
God, I hate. This is a soft spot for me, partially because the subject is kind of sensitive, but also because it's like so many people have come after me with this, like to tell me how Sweden is the rape capital of the world. Like, you have no idea, you asshole. Because the thing, sorry,
It's
I
all right.
wanted to make a big segment about that in my video about Sweden, heaven and hell. I think I kind of mentioned it. It was a while ago since I did it. But I do want to get back to the topic one day and just talk about that.
This is the
Gotta
dramatic
connect back
juice
to
that the audience craves. It's all good.
People like when I rant. I don't know why.
It's it's the lilt. It's the Scandinavian lilt in the pursuit of justice.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the differences between the Canadian Conservative Party and the UK Conservative Party? Canadian Conservative Party, I think, is significantly more right wing. They are still like they're not like American conservatives. They tend to avoid the third rail of being socially conservative, so they don't like weigh in on things like abortion and gay marriage. It's just not those aren't issues that you're allowed to talk about. But for the most part, our conservatives are directly like our Conservative Party is more or less lobbyists for the Alberta oil fields, and their whole platform is let's just put all of our eggs in this one basket, guys. It'll never run dry. That's more or less it. Okay, next one is what are your thoughts on Sebastian Kurz, the Chancellor of Austria? Also, do you believe that his side of politics should be considered leftist in the U.S. would be considered leftist in the U.S.? All right, I don't know much about Sebastian Kurz. Do you?
No.
I thought that like Austria is kind of going down the far right, but
That's what I heard.
I don't want to weigh in on something that we're not super
Kurz has
knowledgeable about.
been the chairman of the Austrian People's Party since 2007. The Austrian People's Party is a conservative Christian Democrat. Hang on.
See, that's the thing that that always
Conservatism. All I see is right wing things.
yeah. The only thing I could think though is that this is something that maybe people on my side of the Atlantic don't. We don't have Christian Democrats, and so I don't exactly know what they are.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. I keep forgetting that America doesn't really have that either.
No.
Kind of. Christian Democrats are basically. It really depends because I live in Sweden and we have our own kind of flavor of it. But on the continent, it's kind of this like center. It's like center right Christian values thing. That's not explicitly conservative like Christian values are in America, for example, but like it's more like Christian values in the sense of don't rock the boat too much and let's be comfortable as much as we can, kind of.
Yeah, like Angela Merkel's a Christian Democrat, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and a lot of Christian Democrats can go left too, like center left.
Depending on the country.
Because that's still like compatible with the Christian democratic beliefs. But Sweden has its own brand of Christian Democrats, so I can't really say about that because our Christian Democrats are founded in like far right Christian fundamentalists. So
yeah,
our Christian Democrats are far right, but they want to pretend to be part of this like more continental, kinder, more progressive Christian Democrats, but they're not. In Sweden, they're anti-abortionists, assholes, and they're the only party that sided with the Swedish Democrats.
Mm-hmm. I will say,
literally founded by the Nazis.
Hot take for the chat: the Christian Democrats sound a lot like the role that the Muslim Brotherhood plays in a lot of Islamic countries, because that sounds almost that sounds very similar.
Very much so.
Okay, let's see, where are we? Okay, question for Mia: as someone who hasn't seen your YouTube videos yet, do you have a favorite I should watch first? That's a good question. I like that one.
My latest one probably, because it's the best one. I mean, the easy answer would probably because I try to get better with every single video that I do. So the answer would probably be like my latest one because I think that's the best like one production wise. But if you really want, I would probably say Sweden, Heaven and Hell, which came out like a year ago almost. But that's like the beginning of my professional YouTube career thing. That's when I actually started kind of take things seriously. Kind of. I still fuck up a lot in those days. I've only recently started to get marginally competent at what I do. But Sweden, Heaven and Hell is like pretty good when I talk about Sweden. My video on anti-intellectualism is pretty good too. I pour syrup on my head in that one.
Classic.
And I think it came out right after my one on Sweden, so you could watch both of those too. My video on anti-intellectualism became pretty popular. I think it's my second most popular video ever, so you can go watch that. I like it. I think it's very good. I talk academic ideas, but with a more basic language, and I also get to pour syrup on my face.
The next question is, would the U.S. be doing anything more to fight climate change if Hillary was in office? My answer would be a little bit. I think that it wouldn't be actively, like, the absolute destruction of the EPA and the few environmental protections that America does have would definitely not be happening. Trump is like uniquely terrible at like destroying the Department of Energy and the Department of Environmental Protection and everything like that. Like that is definitely like real bad. I think that if Hillary Clinton, and also leaving Paris, if Hillary Clinton were president, America would probably be very much like how Canada is right now, which is that it is still part of Paris and says it will stick to Paris, but is like way under its targets that it needs to hit, and not really doing a whole lot of like actual hard stuff to get it to happen.
Yeah, that seems like a good take.
All right,
could be better, but it could be better. Would probably be better, but certainly wouldn't be as bad as it is right now.
Thoughts on Joe Rogan?
He's the comedian one, isn't he?
Joe Rogan is the one that people are telling me that I have the wrong idea of, because I just think of him like a Steven Crowder-y type guy, but apparently he's like a libertarian, but he's like less like he's bad at like getting people on his show and then like not criticizing them even when they say dumb far right things, but then he also gets like Bernie Sanders on the show and lets him actually say his platform, which not a lot of people were doing. So
I don't know. I have to see if this was him, but I remember Joe Rogan like inviting. Hang on, I'm gonna have to check. Is it? I think, yeah. So my only experience with Joe Rogan is that like whenever he talks about trans stuff, because I remember him talking to Adam Conover like 4 months ago or something, and like Adam Conover could definitely have done better in the debate or whatnot, but Joe Rogan is like not on the side of progressive causes like at all. And whenever he pops up into my radar, it's always because he's done some like some shitty thing. I don't know. He might be like great in certain areas, but I've only ever encountered him when he's done or promoted or taken the point of like really anti-progressive ideas. So that's just me. But that's just like, so he might be great, but I don't think he is.
Yeah. The only problem is that he's fantastically popular, and he's like the #1 dumb guy podcast. Like if you know if there's a dumb guy in your life, chances are he listens to Joe Rogan.
Yeah. But we need to stop people making podcasts. No offense, but we need to stop. It needs to stop.
Somebody said it's the new version of like when everybody was starting a band in high school.
Oh, definitely. The thing is, I'm starting a podcast eventually, like hopefully this year. So I'm not, but like we need to stop this madness.
There are too many, and everybody who I talk to is listening to less of them. It's peaked.
Yeah, it's peaked. Like I have 3 podcasts that I listen to, and that's it. I don't have space for more. Like I've wanted to have my own for over a year, and I haven't had time to make my own one. Nonetheless, even listen to another. So like, no, it's over. The podcast age is over. The second Conan O'Brien started his own podcast, it was dead.
Mm-hmm.
I love Conan O'Brien, but the second he started doing podcast, it died.
Aventura is a. Oh, this is another super chat from Ariel Fernandez. Aventura is a bachata band from New York City. Yes, I actually know Aventura because what's it called? My cat's attacking me. Because the security guard at my building really likes them and recommends them to me. And then there's some quotes from some lyrics from a song. Yep. Okay, and those are some lyrics from another song. The song is about a man being obsessed about a woman who has a boyfriend that he likes. All right. Thank you, Ariel Fernandez. I really appreciate that. 255 AD wants to know, a guy on Reddit told me that Antifa beat an old man with a crowbar. Why does Google prioritize propaganda like that? It took me 20 minutes to find out the old guy started the fight.
Because it gets clicked. It's not Google actively trying to like promote far right ideas. It's just that far right ideas currently, like the narrative that the people promote, is more clickable. That's what the algorithm like. The algorithm like click, and so it programs itself to be more promotive to click. And the more that it happens, the more it's gonna happen in the future. So the algorithm is learning that saying like hiding the truth and saying things that sound outrageous gets more clicks and gets more money and gets more engagement. And so over time, the algorithm is becoming smarter and smarter, which is bad.
Yeah.
I should also say that the Conan podcast is good. I just think it's podcasting as an industry is good. I like it. Again, I'm gonna start my own goddamn podcast, and I love listening to podcasts. It's just that it's too much sometimes, where every single like woke or semi woke or non woke dude has like a hot take. He invites 4 of his friends and talks for 4 hours every single day.
Yeah.
It's too much.
I think that the pirate radio days of podcasting are very, very dead. And now it's like radio and TV and...
Yeah. The only good podcasters are the McElroy brothers.
That's true.
Those are the only ones. That's it. They did it. They perfected the format. It's done now.
Agreed. And also that it's
podcast history.
It's also very easy to make more clickable headlines and stuff like that when you are less morally scrupulous and you can just make up things. Yeah. Do you think that the plan to give students paid per college in the United States can cause a collapse of higher education in the U.S.?
What?
So do you think that do you think that the plan to give students paid for college in the United States cause a collapse of higher education in the United States?
It was like free college.
Yeah, will free college cause a collapse?
Well, free college would just make it more based on merit than who can afford it. Because currently the pool of people who apply to university in America are people who can afford it. If you make it free, that pool can expand to anyone. So that means that smart people that come from like lower class or poor communities have a much more equal footing to compete with people from upper class families and rich people, which means that the people who get into higher education programs will in general be better suited for it. So and it will, because the pool will be greater, which means that the cream of the crop that eventually get into university courses are also taken from a wider pool and therefore has a higher chance of being the cream of the crop.
It's another one of those America problems, because like America, they just have the thing come out where rich people can literally just pay their kids into university. If you remember that whole scandal.
I do. Oy. Sweden has its own education problems, but that's just because for-profit companies are starting schools that are funded with taxpayer money, and then making a profit of it. So like they take taxpayer money and they can actually make a profit from it.
And they're incentivized to make it cheap.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not cheap; it's free. everyone studying in Sweden studies for free.
Yeah, but if they're
So
making a
they
profit, then they're incentivized to like cut costs and.
Oh yeah, you mean like that? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's the idea here. That's the only controversy that we have.
Mm-hmm.
For,
I have.
like paid for university education would just be a good in totality.
Mm-hmm. All right. Gonna have no. We have one more question, so then we'll come round out. So, Ara Fernandez, one last super chat to say: I have a top secret plan that will make male teenagers and young adults join the left wing movement. It's so secret I can't tell you. Evil laugh. Thank you for that. The last question is: which smart educational podcasters would you recommend?
Smart educational podcasters. Oh shit, I need to. I don't really listen to educational podcasts.
I will. I have a few recommendations while you're searching. There's a really good one called Behind the Bastards. If you like history, you'll like that podcast, where it's it's a study of the biographies of terrible human beings, which is great, including one 2-part series that is deep dive into the system that made Harvey Weinstein's predatory behavior succeed for so long. There's The Dollop, which is a fairly leftist American history podcast that's done by some funny people, so that's good. There's Revolutions, which is a solid podcast about revolutions throughout history. Deconstructed with Mehdi Hassan, I think, is a pretty good one.
I've heard about that.
Mehdi Hassan has a pretty good grasp of American history, so that's a pretty good one. Polite Conversations with Ina, friend of the show. Love to see it. United States of it could happen. No, that United States of Anxiety is a pretty good one. Radio War Nerd, if you're really into the kind of stuff we were talking about earlier about drones and stuff. Hardcore History, the classic. Know Your Enemy is a pretty good one about American conservatism. Citations Needed, another really good political one that kind of is about all the PR bullshit that happens in the American media. And I think those are the ones that I maybe recommend. Death in the Afternoon, which is run by the Ask a Mortician team, which is fun. Those are all mine, if you have any recs.
Sweet. No, I'm just Googling. I'm looking through my Spotify podcast playlist, and it's just all Swedish podcasts. So there's nothing really I can so it's unfortunately because it's all in Swedish.
Oh.
Because I'm Swedish.
Yeah.
That's how I do.
It's kind of hard. You do all of your social media and everything in English. It's hard to forget that when you're not on the internet, you're just speaking Swedish all day.
Yeah. No, yeah, like if someone were to meet me in real life and like have a casual human conversation with me, like as I would normally, I would be in Swedish. I've met 2 fans actually of my YouTube channel in real life, and they sometimes get really surprised when I speak Swedish because they've never heard me speak Swedish before. And the voice changes in different languages because that's how the larynx and the tongue and the voice box, everything.
I think that's a good one to end up on. Do you please, for anybody who hasn't seen your stuff before, please plug all of the things.
Oh shit, you're giving me the platform to just promote my content. How dare you? First of all, I just want you're really good, and I'm really happy that you bring me onto these streams, and I'm really thankful for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. You make it so much more fun.
Thank you. I just really hope that I make this fun, and that I don't annoy you too much with my rambling.
Oh no, you're great.
Because I ramble a lot. But yeah, hi. I'm gonna get real close to the mic. Hi, my name is Mia Mulder. I'm a YouTuber that does things about stuff with sometimes with an historical background, sometimes not, about things that I find interesting, sometimes with an historical basis, sometimes not. My most recent video talks about trans identity, about being trans and relating to trans identity in the current discourse with an historical background as to why some people might have a different perspective than I do. And you should go watch that, and you should subscribe to me there. You can also find me on Twitter at potatopolitics, twitter.com/potatopolitics.
And trans rights.
Trans right.
All right. It's a Twitch tradition. So this is my first Twitch stream. So
Apparently.
yeah. All right, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow night for a more America time friendly stream. Mia will not be there because it's the middle of the night for her. But
what time is it? I want to check.
It's at 7 p.m. Eastern, so I think European time that would be at like 2 in the morning or something like that.
Let's check. It's 1 in the morning.
There you go.
Almost past 1 hour past midnight, and I will be sleeping.
Yeah. So we'll have a good time. It'll be just me. We'll introduce ourselves to the Twitch community. Again, it will be on YouTube, but that will be the last stream that I do on YouTube. So everybody follow here. So yeah, if you haven't had the opportunity, if you're watching on YouTube and you want to continue to love Step Back and Step Back streams, go to the link that's right there, the twitch.tv/stepbackhistory, and follow. You can get the Twitch app on your phone, and it's much better than watching a live stream on YouTube. And you can what's it called? You'll enjoy it. You'll be great. We'll all have a really good time. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All right, and I will now see with this strange concoction